This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Wednesday, November the 19th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's the producer. You'll be speaking with Dave when you pick up the phone, give us a call in the queue, get on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So now there are two professional hockey player siblings. We all know Alex Nahuk playing for the Montreal Canadiens, but just yesterday, Abby Nahuk, who played her college hockey at Boston College, of course. She was drafted by the Boston Fleet to play in the Professional Women's Hockey League, made the team out of camp, signed her first professional contract yesterday. So the Nahuk siblings, both pro hockey players. Absolutely brilliant stuff. All right, and no one will be surprised by this little baseball note. So Bo Bichette is a free agent. He's going to test the market. The Jays made him a qualifying offer. He declined it. A qualifying offer is you take the median salary of the top 125 best paid players in the majors. So the qualifying offer was over $22 million. It's not unusual for players of Bo's caliber to decline the qualifying offer, and there's a bunch of big names out there who did the exact same thing. Hopefully one or two of them end up as a Jay. So the Jays will have to compete with the rest of the league in trying to secure Bo Bichette's services into the future. When you make a qualifying offer, though, if you lose Bichette, then you get some draft picks as compensation. So we don't know what's going to become of him quite yet, but he declined the qualifier. No surprise. All right, just a very quick, interesting note in the world of professional men's tennis. So I talked about the fact that world number one, Carlos Alcaraz, and world number two, Jannik Sinner, played against each other in the ATP finals just this past weekend. The rivalry is pretty great. As professionals, they have played 3,302 points in their rivalry. They've both won 1,651, the exact same number of points won as rivals at professional men's tennis. Wild. All right, more important stuff for you, I assume. So we're going to get an update today from new Transportation Minister Barry Pettin, and this is about 24/7 winter maintenance operations, so ice control and snow clearing. It was one of the promises that the PC's made on the campaign trail, and we get copious number of emails about snow clearing and the lack thereof, or the lack of ice control. When the argument was made as to why 24/7 was not required, and this is not in all areas, we'll find out from the Minister this morning about exactly what will be covered 24/7. We were always told, what happens if you have to call 911 and you need an ambulance? And the answer would come back something like this. Well, we will be prepared to respond. So at that point, you've got to get the operator out of the bunk, over to the depot, get into the equipment, make their way to the area where the ambulance or the cop car or the fire truck has to go. When, of course, every second matters when we're talking about an emergency, so it never really made a whole lot of sense. But the 24/7 winter maintenance operations announcements coming around 11 o'clock this morning from the provincial depot in Foxtrap. We'll figure it out and we'll follow it on your behalf. I will add to that when we talk about emergencies. People like to point to the fact that there's so many areas in the province where emergency services cannot be called because your cell phone doesn't work. So in addition to the winter operation announcement, I'd be curious to know what the plan is of the new PC government about expansion or working with the telecom companies so that we can improve cell phone service. Your thoughts. All right. So we had Sheila O'Leary on the program, I think it was on Monday, the NDP member for St. John's East, Kitty Vitty, talking about the potential to remove tax from home heating. Now we have the province's consumer advocate, Dennis Brown, chiming in on what he calls a capital cost crisis, looking over the next couple of years and the monies requested by Hydro, or expenditures want to be approved by the PUB from Newfoundland Labrador Hydro and Newfoundland Power. He warns that it's going to put some serious pressure on the ratepayer. Quote from Mr. Brown. This looming capital cost crisis reflects Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro's past decisions and future plans. It was not caused by Newfoundland Power. However, there are actions that it can take to help avoid or mitigate the potentially devastating cost to the consumer. Remember, we just saw a 7% rate hike on the 1st of July. In June, Newfoundland Power submitted an application to the Public Utilities Board looking for $140 million in new expenditures from 2026 to 2028. We don't really know all the nitty-gritty details regarding that proposal of $140 million. But we also know that Newfoundland Labrador Hydro is seeking billions for new power capacity, whether it be expansion and the 8th generating unit at Bay d'Espoir, 150 megawatt combined cycle turbine of some variety to be stationed at Holyrood. But it'd be nice to know exactly what's involved here and how that's going to fall back to the ratepayer. One of the recommendations that Mr. Brown cites is advising against the approval of projects at Mount Carmel Pond Dam. Brown says it costs too much money with minimal positive impact. Also, a proposed customer correspondence modernization program costing just shy of $2 million. Mr. Brown says there's no evidence that ratepayers have asked for it. He goes on to say that he thinks Newfoundland Power should install or move to installing smart meters, ideally by the end of next year. 8 other provinces have made the switch to smart meters, but we are not one of them. Newfoundland Power says it's too expensive insofar as their operations and then consequently costs of the ratepayer. Your thoughts on it? All right, so it's 15 years ago, either yesterday or today, where the Muskrat Falls announcement was made at Confederation Building by then Premier Danny Williams. 15 years later, I'm not so sure we have a final tally of overall cost. The last we heard was $13.5 billion, but that number is a couple of years old. So there's still work being done, whether it be at the Labrador Island Link and otherwise. We know there continues to be concerns with at least one of the generating units at Muskrat Falls. So where is that particular number? Also, I guess sticking with the river for a second, insofar as the Memorandum of Understanding, some people might be tired of hearing about it, but it's 50 plus years of our future, and we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. So we can take it on from any angle if you're so inclined. One question that I'll put back out there, though, is what does Jennifer Williams think of the PC stance on it? What does Premier Tony Wakeham think about Jennifer Williams' role at the helm of Hydro, given the fact that she was one of the key architects and negotiators for where we've landed with this Memorandum of Understanding? So I'm not speaking ill of either side on that front, but that working relationship has got to be a good one for all of our collective best interest. So you just wonder where that might be. Sticking with Labrador. So in an attempt to restructure and to provide more stability, Rio Tinto is making some layoffs, including in Labrador City, here in the city of St. John, Sept-Îles, Quebec, and in Montreal. And of course, they're the majority owner of IOC, the Iron Ore Company of Canada. All right, they talk about trying to provide support to employees through assistance programs, trying to find other jobs for employees to do, but it really feels like a top-heavy issue. Apparently, none of the unionized staff hourly wage workers are being laid off, but when you're in a community like that, layoffs have an impact across the community. Of course they do. But it'd be nice to know exactly how many positions are being affected, but we do not know. So there's a hiring freeze in place in addition to it, but a sobering moment for the folks in Lab West at this moment of time. Nobody wants to hear about folks losing their job, especially in an area where we see such a bullish future. So many opportunities in mining, current mining operations, expansions, potential for new mines, but Rio Tinto layoffs are happening. You want to talk about it. Let's go. And on that front, when we talk about job losses, you know, not everybody is pleased to see that the public service at the federal level is going to be downsized. You've heard the story coming from the 2025 budget about at least 16,000 jobs to be lost over the course of the next 3 years. Some through attrition. There's plenty of people that are scheduled to retire in the next year or two. But at the Federation of Labour, who are in their last day of a national convention, of course they're concerned. The question would be, is during the increase in the numbers of people working for the federal government over the last decade, did we see a commensurate improvement with services and access to services? And I think by and large, Canadians would say no. And I think it's been well documented by the country's Auditor General, Karen Hogan, that she doesn't think so either. There's some looming gaps. So now with the further reduction, and we can talk about artificial intelligence replacing some of the human beings working in various positions at the federal government level, but that's the big question, I think, for Canadians. Yes, the savings, and people talk about public service bloat and or top-heavy inside the ranks of senior bureaucrats. But it's the services, the quality of and the access to, I think, would be the number one concern, in addition to people actually losing their job. But if you want to talk about it, we can do it. And talk about the potential for jobs to be lost. Yesterday, the Canada Post Corporation held their annual meeting, and they are absolutely bleeding money. Here we go. So far this year, and this comes from the Chief Financial Officer, Rindala El-Hagi, I believe her name is. All right. Canada Post's operating loss so far in 2025 totals more than $1 billion. Latest quarterly loss, $541 million before tax. Unprecedented numbers. It's the largest quarterly loss in the company's history. There were recommendations made back in September that didn't sit well with the union representing the postal workers. And of course, the Fed said, in a way to try to right size or to try to get back on some sort of stable footing, ending home delivery. You know, for parts of the country that didn't see an end to their home delivery and moved to the super mailbox, like, for instance, that my family has to go to, but it's different for us. It's just down the street. For folks in more rural parts of the country, it could be a pretty long distance from where you live. In addition to that, there was recommendations to cut a full swath of rurally located postal stations, post offices, I suppose. So looking for some sort of future for Canada Post, they have submitted some sort of plan to modernize the service back in in October. Not entirely sure where that lands, but here they do. And this is the CEO talking about pretty vague hints at massive job cuts. They're going to see an attrition to downsize from its workforce that currently stands around 62,000 employees. 16,000 employees retiring from or leaving the corp by 2030, another 14,000 by 2035. So even when recommendations were made to increase the price of a stamp, you know, some of the Canada Post blame on the workers and the vice versa, unionized workers blaming the leadership, and they did squander what was a pretty significant surplus. They say at the corporate level that it was a need to modernize and improve infrastructure, but the future Canada Post looks pretty bleak. It's easy enough to say, well, just use a courier service. The one issue there is pretty clear. There are a significant number of Canadians that the only access they have to postal, mail and or parcel delivery is from Canada Post. As they refer to it, the last mile service, which we keep saying even though we're using kilometres in this country, but the last mile of service is going to be a tricky one to overcome. And the future does indeed look pretty bleak. All right. Yesterday, we found out the result of a court challenge regarding Brea Renewables and the flash fire explosion that happened over 3 years ago. A man is dead. So Brea pled guilty to one charge, and all the rest of the charges were taken off. So they were sentenced for safety violations related to the explosion. So they pleaded guilty to one occupational health and safety violation. Okay. When you talk about a corporation being found guilty in a contravention of some of the OHS rules and regulations, it comes down to a fine. So the Crown and Brea provided the judge with a joint sentencing submission a total financial penalty of $118,000. Now, the company's lawyer does go on to say that the sentencing process is not about attempting to put a value on a life that has been lost here or to somehow assess the injuries that have been suffered. Some of the injuries were significant. And again, a man is dead. So the total fine comes in three components: a $60,000 fine, an $18,000 victim fine surcharge, and another $40,000 payable to the minister for the purpose of public education. So it really comes across as a very cold way to adjudicate exactly what happened when all these men were hurt and someone died. But that's the result of that particular court case, and that'll bring upon some pretty emotional reaction from unionized leaders or otherwise. In addition to that, it's probably important to put out there, again, that there was an internal audit at the province's Occupational Health and Safety Division. And it became evident that very frequently they missed the 2-year deadline for concluding investigations. So that was into serious workplace accidents. Consequently, we don't know exactly what companies may indeed have been able to wiggle off the hook because they weren't providing safe work conditions, just like at Brea. So there's obviously an impact on justice. It looked back to the 2022 audit, looked all the way back to 2017. And they found that somewhere in the neighborhood of at least a quarter never, ever hit the deadline of 2 years. There was also clear examples of nudging right up against the deadline of 2 years and just rushing to put forward a statement. And then other court cases where there was no evidence put forward. So I wonder where we are on that front, because that's pretty important stuff. So whether it be some systemic issues with high turnovers for their investigators, some of the outdated processes, period, outdated procedures. So anyway, if you want to talk about it, we can do it. How we doing out there, Dave? There's a bunch I really wanted to get to, but again, I understand we had some complaints come in about, the audacity of Liberal members who were part of the past Liberal government questioning or criticising, complaining about current government operations, given the fact that we are really early in the PC government days. But some issues just deserve some pretty immediate attention, like all the understandings we have about the Auditor General's report and things like personal care homes and long-term care homes. Those seem to be pretty well understood by the PCs, given the fact that we all read the same reports. We're all familiar with the recommendations, so you can tell me what you think the appropriate timeline is. All right. See your story from Mount Pearl. Remember where there was 2 episodes of some pretty serious beatings being handed out? And it scared the community. So the final teen to learn his fate has found it. He was 15 years of age at the time, and they were doing what they thought were luring pedophiles. The problem is, number one, vigilantism is dangerous no matter how you cut it. And one of the people that got beat severely with a bat wasn't involved at all. They identified the wrong guy. So he's been charged now, of course, and he's been through the courts. 2 counts of aggravated assault, which he pled guilty, served 24 days in custody, and now just 18 months of probation. So that did indeed shock the community, no question. But, and as the judge said, whether or not it was a pedophile or not, the act of being a vigilante and handing out these beatings with baseball bats, of course, rocked the community. And so these teens now will have that hanging over their head. And the men who got beaten for no good reason. One right outside of school, picking up his own child. But anyway. And talk about luring pedophiles. Oh, man. So yesterday, Congress has voted in overwhelming fashion to see the release of what people call the Epstein files inside the legislation called the Epstein Files Transparency Act. All right. It gives Congress the ability to, in some form or fashion, sort of hide from it. It's going to go to the United States Senate, to which they say they're going to make careful amendments in an effort to protect the victims, even though victim protection is part of the bill. You can read it for yourself. Then, Speaker, just quickly, people ask me sometimes, why do we even talk about American politics? Well, American politics, American life, American discourse makes its way into the Canadian conversation. It just does, whether it be economically and or societally. So that's why I think you can't avoid talking about the train wreck that is American politics. Back to the conversation. So Speaker Mike Johnson has said they're going to take their time, which means they're going to drag their feet. Then, of course, is the complicating factor of a request from the Oval Office to have some prominent Democrats investigated by the FBI and the Department of Justice. So consequently, what's the likelihood of very little to no information for a long time will be revealed? Why? Ongoing investigations. Politicians love to hide behind the ongoing investigation. So we'll see as to whether or not. So apparently the president has to sign the legislation today that gives the DOJ 30 days to release the information, the unclassified materials. But I guess there's some concerns as to whether or not you're going to be able to trust anything you see at this stage, right? What do you think? A couple of last quick ones. So the Prime Minister is on his way to the United Arab Emirates, a stopover to try to forge more access to money. So the UAE sits on some of the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world. So there's always going to be concerns about who trading partners should be. People voice concerns about China. I get it. Then it's about the Saudis or the Qataris or the United Arab Emirates, because they all have some pretty dodgy backgrounds insofar as potential to fund, for instance, paramilitary operations in the Sudan, which has been accused of the UAE repeatedly, the Qataris, the Saudis. So people talk about pragmatism and needing to access to capital or to do business with partners, even with acknowledgements of human rights. But it is staggering to watch some of the things that go on here. So just last week, there was a former Al-Qaeda terrorist who was on their terrorism watch list and had a $10 million bounty on his head, welcomed gleefully into the Oval Office. And just yesterday, which is truly remarkable, is so the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, MSB, who the CIA has said was responsible for the murder and dismembering of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The president was asked about it directly in the Oval Office yesterday, to which he basically said, well, not everyone liked him, and he was a bad guy. Things happen. Wow. I mean, wow. Remember, the Saudis, who have a very tainted past, while you welcome MSB on his rehabilitation tour into, and I know we had a Nazi inside the House of Commons, so I understand all of these issues, but to know that the Saudis, even with their couple of $1 billion to Mr. Kushner, 15 of 19 9/11 hijackers were citizens in Saudi Arabia. Other 4 hijackers were from the United Arab Emirates, 1 from Egypt, 1 from Lebanon. The Saudis put $2 billion into Kushner's fledgling equity firm back in 2021. So it's a weird world. While people were absolutely outraged that Zohran Mamdani became the mayor of New York and the possibility for Sharia law and all the communism and all the rest of it, but gleefully welcoming in people who were not only an actual terrorist known for beheading Americans, and then MSB, who is, and it's unbelievable. Even the president yesterday said that MSB doesn't know anything about the death of Jamal Khashoggi, even though his own CIA said he absolutely was responsible for it and gave the order for it. It's a wild time to be alive. We are on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That can only happen if you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go. Line number 2. Janet, you're on the air.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you. How about you?
Not too bad. Yesterday morning I got cut off. I was trying to get on when they were talking about the nurse practitioners. I just retired actually 2 years now from nursing, 32 years, and so I'm glad I'm out of it now because it's absolutely terrible. But the nurse practitioners are so needed, even though, you have to pay for them, but you pay for what you get, because I have a family member who has been about 5 years trying to get her doctor to assess her for these tremors.
Janet? Dave, can you check and see if we have an issue with Janet's line? Janet, are you still there on line number 2? Dave just picked up. See if we can make sure we have a good line with Janet. Let's go to line number 1. Barry, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thanks for taking my call. It's been a while since I spoke with you.
Welcome back.
Patty, a couple of things before I get into the food fishery. One is I'd like to send out birthday greetings, and the birthday greetings to Patty is going out to Sharing the Harvest NL. This is our 5th year in operation.
Fantastic. You're doing good work. So for folks who don't know, tell us about Share the Harvest and how it began and how it's grown.
Well, Sharing the Harvest is a program that I developed, similar to Hunters Helping the Hungry, where hunters can donate their moose, caribou, and now we've expanded to country food, blueberries, raspberries, codfish, etc., to Sharing the Harvest, and we in turn donate to the food banks in Greater St. John's area and also to senior citizens.
Fantastic. And so, insofar as how it's grown, I'm also referring to the amount of donations you've been able to receive and how many people you've been able to help.
We're getting donations. No, Patty, I'll be honest, I'm buying most of the country food.
Okay.
To distribute, and that's fair enough. That's I'm not complaining about that. But the need is there, and this year seems to be more and more senior citizens that are calling me looking for country food. That reflects on the food insecurity crisis, as I call it, not issue anymore, crisis.
Well, it is that. I mean, just anyone who's been to a grocery store in the last number of years knows exactly what it's like. And the purchasing power of a dollar continues to erode. So whatever the crisis is today, it's going to be even worse for many tomorrow. Indeed
so, Paddy, indeed so. And the second thing I'd like to say is give a shout out to the people of Portugal Cove South. I'm glad that everything worked out and you got your parish back. Yeah, so that story there is Holy Rosary Parish out in Portugal Cove South. They were very quick to say when the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation was insolvent and had to sell off all of the church properties, parish halls and churches and other land and property, they said no. They put a lock on the door. They told developers to stay away. You're not welcome in Portugal Cove South. And now, lo and behold, they're able to maintain and keep their church in the community. So they stood fast and they won. Indeed so, Paddy, indeed so. So it brings me to the main topic, that's food fishery.
Okay.
Paddy, how many calls have we had together talking about food fishery over the years?
A lot.
Yeah, that's right. You have to think, and it's impossible to tell. So here we are today now at the end of another food fishery, and we were lobbying hard there before food fishery started there in spring, and we were hoping to get some kind of leeway, but lo and behold, there was no changes, and we were greatly disappointed again. But the Minister, Joanne Thompson, came out and said that she was going to do a consultation meeting in the fall. I immediately thought that was going to be online, and then then she made the announcement that it was going to be a community town hall meetings around the province, which was great. But now, lo and behold, she made the announcement at on the broadcast, or made the allusion on broadcast here past Friday down at the Mary Brown Centre, that it may be in the form of an online survey. And lo and behold, yesterday, the day before, the survey, it was announced that the survey was coming out in an online survey fashion, which is greatly disappointing, but, you know, what do you do? So, you know, what are we looking for? We're just looking, it all boils down to lack of respect and common decency. And it's truly unacceptable, Paddy. The fact that we had to form a food fishery fighters group speakers of how little Ottawa listened to what we're talking about. And Minister Thompson has also said that she is open to having meetings and discussions about the survey, etc. Well, my God, Paddy, I sent her an email for a meeting in August 6th, and I just got an answer there about a week and a half ago. So how the heck can I expect to get a meeting with her if she doesn't even answer the emails?
It's an excellent question. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
No, that's it.
Go ahead.
That's all I had. Is if look, okay. I'm almost getting tired of this exact phrase, but even if people don't get the answer they want, an answer is better than silence. And I have no earthly idea why politicians can't figure that out.
It's totally unacceptable that the people that we vote in can't even meet with us to listen to our concerns. So, you know, we thought that the spring passed. We had a good chance of getting something changed with the moratorium, with the food fishery, because the moratorium is ended. Commercial fishers got a quota, increased quota of 20,000 metric tons. I should say, almost double the quota. The foreigners got a quota. Tourists from all over the world can come here and fish any day of the week, Paddy, any day of the week, and fish and keep cod, where we're only relegated to 3 days a week. That's not acceptable. And right now, we're also treated differently than our neighbours in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Quebec. They can fish 7 days a week in the summer, while we're limited to 3. Now, Paddy, let's talk about the limit for a second, and that's 5 fish per person per day. Well, in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, they have they have 2 different fisheries. One is the recreational fishery, which is the shoreline recreational fishery, where cod can't be kept, but then the other where cod can be kept. So when the cod is open, their daily bag limit is 15 fish. 5 can't be any more than 5 codfish, but their quota also includes hake, pollock, etc., and flounder. Whereas here, if we catch flounder, that's got to be counted part of our bag limit. Our bag limit should be exceeded, and we have been lobbying for an increase to 10 fish per person per day, now agreed by necessity and the food insecurity crisis that we have already talked about. So we find it totally unacceptable that we can't get anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know how the consultations are going to work or if there's any change coming. The consultations might be as much as important as things like budget consultations, because when that happens, people put forward their needs and wants and whatever laundry list of demands. But generally speaking, the budget is almost carefully crafted prior to consultations. It probably doesn't mean a whole lot, gives people the feeling that they've had their say. Whether or not their say has been heard will be acknowledged and implemented. I think it's more window dressing than anything else.
Paddy, well put. Let me remind your listeners a number of reasons why we're seeking an enhancement. Fairness, I mentioned earlier, we deserve the same opportunity as other maritime provinces. Safety, we talked about the weather and going out. Food security, we talked about that. equality, we want to be equal to our maritime provinces and cultures, stronger communities, because that enhancing the food fishery will develop stronger communities and economics. Culture is very important because God is part of who we are, our compass, if you will. It connects generations and teaches our kids traditional skills. The knowledge is being passed over. Just a little while ago, someone was saying about the commercial fishery, how that's lost to generation. And the generation is very important because there's all kinds of skills, knowledge, and everything else passed down from generation to generation. And we're losing that. And sustainability, science is showing stocks can support a modest increase. Now, Patty, we're asking for double our limit from 5 fish to 10 fish per person per day. And you talk about that. I mean, we're not facing, well, we're being greedy. No, it's not being greedy. If you compare what we're asking for to the offshore draggers and trawlers, you take one net of that trawler, Patrick Creed's trawler, that's probably more than what the food fishery actually catches.
Yeah, for once and for all, we're going to have to put some scientific numbers together so we can put that conversation to bed. People hate to hear it, but whether it's a logbook or one season with tags, just to provide the numbers. So, I mean, actual data is better than anecdotal data and guesswork. But, Barry, appreciate the time. Anything else quick before I say goodbye?
Yes, indeed, Patty. Thank you very much. And so, in closing, then it's not just about catching fish, Patty. It's about fairness. It's about food. It's about our future. Enhancing the food fishery means honouring our heritage while ensuring our families can thrive today. And essentially, we're asking for reconciliation. We want a fair future, and we're not asking for special treatment, just fair treatment and respect. So, in this consultation, I'll talk about the e-book and the e-book or logbook or whatever. And there's a question on the survey that narrows you down to the choice whether you want to. They say, would you support an increased limit with a logbook, or if you don't want to make a recorded logbook, look at a decrease in your limit. So again, they're treating us like children again.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. That's one thing for sure. Barry, I got to get going. I appreciate your time.
Patty, thank you. It's always been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Take care. All right, bye-bye. I don't know what happened to Janet, because that was probably an important conversation regarding nurse practitioners, and she'd know. She was 32 years in the nursing field. Let's get a break in. When we come back, Byron's there to talk about school buses. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Byron, you're on the air.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hi, Patty. Thank you for taking your time to talk to me.
No problem. Go ahead.
I want to tell you a little bit about my past. Now, I grew up here in Marystown, Newfoundland, and I had a really rough pass in school. I was doing special ed to get the rest of my credits to graduate, and the last week of school, this is in 2005. I went to get on the bus on my permitted seat. I was told I had to sit in the front seat all through high school, and there was a pack of crackers and peanut butter on my seat, which I'm extremely allergic to. So I threw them onto the ground, and the bus driver turned around, and I got expelled from school for that reason. Now I'm talking about my son now. I don't want to get too emotional, but me and my son, I got full custody of my son up in Alberta. His mother hasn't been in his life since he's been 6 years old now, 7 years old. And we moved home in 2018. Now I'm remarried now, and we got 2 more children. Well, my oldest son, he goes on the Red Harbour bus, and I know I'm not supposed to say any names or anything, but he's been going through a really hard time in his life. He's in grade 10 now this year in high school, and me and my wife have been trying our hardest to get him up every morning to go to school. The last 2 weeks, he's been doing that. He's been getting up, getting a shower, and ready to go at the door. And yesterday, he got on the bus, and apparently he put his shoulder on his girlfriend's shoulder. And because of that, the bus driver went into the school and said they were doing sexual acts on the bus. And now he's being told he got to sit on the front seat of the bus as well, and he can't sit around his girlfriend. And this isn't the 90s anymore. We're not living in the 90s anymore, right? Like, it's really hurting me. Like, I know how much he thinks about his girlfriend, and I know my son very well. I know he would not do anything sexual on the bus with his girlfriend in front. He's a good kid, a really good kid. Both of them are good kids. And he promised me that he swore to me that he didn't do anything wrong, and I believe him. And I tried to get hold of the bus depot yesterday, and I got put off from number to number to number. I was on the phone over an hour trying to talk to someone, and I got nothing out of it. I called the school this morning. I got a hold of the guidance counselor, and she said she was going to call the bus depot and try to deal with it. But I'm not getting anywhere with this. And like I said, I feel like he's being treated exactly the way I was treated, and it's not fair.
So what exactly was the punishment? What happened?
The bus driver is claiming that him and his girlfriend were doing sexual acts in the back of the bus. And I asked the lady on the bus depot yesterday, do you have any proof of that? Like, if there was proof of that, I'd shut up. That's it. I'd tell my son off, and he'd have to sit in the front of the bus. But I believe my son. I believe his girlfriend. They both swore to me that nothing happened. They don't kiss on the bus. He just put his head on her shoulder because he was tired. Now the bus driver is saying he got to sit on the front seat, and for a boy that's been through so much in his life, I've moved him home to better his life, and he never went to school today. And that's why I called you.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So is he no longer allowed on the bus, or he's in further trouble at school, or what was the punishment for what the bus driver says?
The school is saying they don't have anything to do with it, but he hasn't been expelled from the bus. It's just the bus driver is saying he now has to sit in the front seat like a kindergarten student. I had to deal with the same thing when I was younger. I dealt with it because there was nothing I could do about it.
Not to be mean-spirited, but is there an actual problem with being told you have to sit in the front of the bus?
Well, to him, it's embarrassing for him, and he wants to sit with his girlfriend. And if they're not doing anything wrong, why can't he sit with his girlfriend on the bus? Like, she means so much to him. Like, he lost his mom when he was 7 years old. I'm just trying to do the best for my son.
Of course you are. You're the dad. And of course, it's hard for me to say anything. I have no earthly idea what went on the bus. I don't know
They
what...
don't either, and that's the problem. They don't have any proof of it, right?
Yeah.
It's just their word against his word, and like I'm not getting through to anybody. I'm just wondering if anybody could call me.
There is a position at the Department of Education, what used to be the school district, that deals specifically with school bus issues. So there's a person in charge of things like this. I don't know if they have the authority to get involved at this level, but there are people that deal with nothing but school busing issues at the Department of Education.
Okay, I couldn't get a hold of anybody yesterday. I'm trying my hardest to do what's right by my son. And it means everything to me that he gets his education. Everything to me.
Of course, and hopefully this doesn't compromise any opportunities, educationally speaking, with whatever happened or did not happen on that school bus. You know,
because he didn't want to get up this morning. And the last 2 weeks he's been getting up and going.
I'm sorry to hear that is what's happening here. Like, a couple of things. We're talking about a pilot project to put dash cameras on the school buses to catch people who pass the bus when the stop line is deployed and the lights are flashing, and we should catch them. We should give them the maximum fine. We should also have more conversations about cameras on the buses and human monitors, because we've heard lots of stories of inappropriate behavior, violence on school buses, so it's probably time for a little bit more of an understanding there. I remember there was one particular school bus that picked up a certain group of kids when we went to Pius X, and one of the grade 6 teachers rode that bus every single day on their way home, just make sure that the people were acting appropriately while on the school bus. Byron, I'm sorry to hear your troubles. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I'm just calling on behalf of my son. He doesn't know I'm calling, but I had to do this because he means the world to me.
Of course he does. I hope everybody's okay.
Yeah, we'll be all right. I just wanted to reach out to you, Paddy, and I really appreciate you talking to me.
I appreciate your time. I wish you well.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, Byron. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, that was so quick. Yeah, I mean, the pilot project for school bus dash cams to catch people passing the stopped school bus, let's just put that on every bus. There's no good reason as to why not. It's not a huge cost. And whether or not there's some seed money from the province in addition to the companies that operate the buses. Plus, how many times have we heard stories about, and this is not about Byron's call, about bad behavior on buses? Whether it be physical violence and or sexual violence or whatever's going on. I know it's going to be difficult to have a human monitor on every single school bus for a variety of reasons. When we've talked about cameras pointed back into the bus to monitor the bus riders, we're always told there's some sort of privacy concern. All right, that might have carried a bit more weight 10, 15, 20 years ago, but now everybody on the bus, maybe save kindergartners, grade ones. Like, I don't know at what age people give their children phones, but other than that small group, everybody on the bus has a camera. You know, everything's being recorded. Many bus rides probably make their way to TikTok or Instagram or whatever the case may be. So anyway, we're not talking about, having cameras in dressing rooms. We're talking about having cameras on buses. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Liam Collier. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. How about you?
Good. I'm a first-time caller, so bear with me.
Take your time. Welcome to the show.
So I'm calling to talk about a website of mine that I've created. It's called the Newfoundland 3D Lighthouse Gallery, and the whole gist of it is in the name. So what it is it's a interactive map, essentially. So you can click on the different markers on the map, and you can learn. It'll give you some of the information about some of the lighthouses in our province, and then you can click on them. And the main focus of the website is that you get to see them in full 3D.
Very cool. Just off the top of my head, do you happen to know how many active operational lighthouses are in the province at this time?
If I think it's around 140, so I got my work cut out for me. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going from east to west as a rule of thumb. There are some exceptions to that, but the first one I've done so far is Fort Amherst, and then after that I have 7 completed right now. I've only just started this about a week ago, so it will take some time, but off the top of my head, I have Fort Amherst, Cape Spear, both of them, because where there's 2 structures left there. I have Harbour Grace Islands, that's no longer a thing. And I have Heart's Content, Bacalao, that's over by Toolingate. And one more, I can't remember. Cape Bonavista, I just did that one yesterday.
It's very cool, and lighthouses, of course, play a key and rich part of our nautical history here. Why get involved doing this, Liam, at this day and age? Because for many people, lighthouses may seem antiquated, somewhat a thing of the past, even though we know they're not. Some are active and really helpful. But why are you doing this?
Well, I've always been interested in maritime history, especially in Newfoundland. My grandfather got me into it, actually. We used to, when I was young, he was sitting on his lap. We used to read a book called The Lighthouse by Dudley Whitney.
Okay.
And that really got me into the subject of lighthouses in general, and especially growing up, like if I ever was on a drive with my parents in the back seat, I'd say, Dad, can we go drive by this town and see the lighthouse? It's a bit strange to some people maybe, but to me it's something I've always been interested in. So the idea of making this website, I've had it for around a couple years now, but it's only recently I've actually had the funds and the skills to do it.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant what you're doing. So are you a coder? Are you building this on your own, or you simply you're the brainchild of it and someone is going to build the site for you?
So the website is already up.
Okay.
I'm not trying to get free advertising or anything, but if you want to check it out, it's nllh3d.ca. Or if you go on Google, you can type in Newfoundland 3D Lighthouse or Lighthouse Newfoundland 3D, any combination of those, and it should be the first result that comes up.
Sounds about right.
But essentially what I use, I have 2 programs that I use to build the lighthouses themselves. So one of them is Blender. That is a 3D modeling software which is free. And then the other one is called Substance Painter, which is a paid program, but I use that to texture the lighthouses so they're in color. And 3D modeling, I guess you could say it's an art. It's not the same as, like, say, a traditional, canvas, but it is certainly something that takes skill to get the hang of.
I would imagine. I'm technologically useless, so I'd be impressed by it, no question. I am going to have a quick peruse of the website. Do you need any contribution from the listeners about one lighthouse or another, or are you simply just giving us the heads up that this is something people can have a click on?
Yeah, that was essentially the gist of it. So I just want to spread the word that it's out there and see if anyone wants to support me. And I'll just briefly go over the product side of it. Essentially, if you have a 3D printer, or if you know someone who has a 3D printer, or you have access to one wherever, you can go on the store section of the website and buy the 3D model itself for the lighthouse, and you can get it. You can print it off and have it as a little trinket, or like a little decorative piece if you want it.
I think it's cool, and I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. I appreciate your time, Liam. Anything else you want to talk about this morning?
No, that should be about it.
Good to have you on the show. Good luck with the project.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay.
So, very quickly, forgot to mention it off the top. Today's the 10th anniversary of the passing of Ron Hynes. Of course, the man known as the Man of 1,000 Songs. He's a big deal in the music community here, to say the very least. So, of course, it was a sad loss. I knew Ron a little bit. It also reminds me of the fact that the day after, when we woke up and learned that Ron had passed at the age of 64, that very day, we had a call from another pretty well-known musician on this program, Kenny Rogers. He was here in town on his way to Corner Brook, as a matter of fact, for a concert. And he said, sorry to hear about your friend. He also went on to say that he knew who Ron Hynes was, which is also pretty cool. There's a nice story on the CBC's website this morning about it. They go through their own cherry-picked list of what they consider to be the 10 greatest Ron Hynes tunes, just very quickly through them. Leaving on an Evening Tide, A Good Dog Is Lost, Godspeed, Sorry Laurie, Gone to Canada, St. John's Waltz, which I really do appreciate, Atlantic Blue, of course, about the Ocean Ranger disaster, A Man of 1,000 Songs, and the top two, Sonny's Dream and No Change in Me. No Change in Me is a hauntingly beautiful song. Sonny's Dream, that song has been, I think it's as old as 1976. That song, they say, has been covered by over 200 different artists, including Emmylou Harris, who was here as the key performer at the Folk Fest. Was it last year or the year before? Anyway, so the passing of Ron Hynes is 10 years ago today. Let's get a break in for the newscast. When we come back, tons of time for you. The topic entirely up to you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's see here. Alan Clark is a professor emeritus in integrated studies at Utah Valley University and adjunct professor of political science at Memorial University of Newfoundland, and joins us on line number 2. Dr. Clark, you're on the air.
Thank you very much for having me.
Happy to have you on. I've exchanged emails with Lorraine Michael about the issue regarding being detained at the border. Tell us what happened.
Well, there was a Palestine tribunal on Canadian responsibility formed up, and a number of scholars from all over the world were to come into Canada and speak. And one of the most prestigious and important of those scholars, Richard Falk, professor emeritus at Princeton, who, as it happens, is Jewish and is 95 years old and in a wheelchair with his elderly wife, who's also an important international legal scholar, were detained for what looks to be a pretext and claimed to be a national security threat to Canada. The questions they asked were almost entirely political. Why they were coming, what his views on the Palestinian resistance were, the views on Israeli genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes in Gaza. So it looks very much like U.S.-style intimidation of free speech, which, of course, implicates our charter rights to free speech. And more importantly, it seems to be a larger pattern of intimidation of people who are speaking out on the Gaza genocide. And we suspect, we don't know for sure, but we suspect strongly that Israeli NGOs, non-governmental organizations, may well be part of the pressure. It's hard to imagine that this would have been generated solely within the Canadian border services. So if this is true, then it becomes a part of a much wider transnational repression of both Canadian and international citizens around the world, which is a threat to free speech, to the media, such as yourself, your ability to report, our ability in the academy to teach and to do research, and to people to speak out. And it's not just Richard Falk's right to speech, but and his wife Hillel Elver's right to speak, but also our right to hear their speak. That's a free speech issue as well. So there are larger issues of freedom and speech and debate that accompany this issue. It may seem like a small thing for someone to be held for 4 hours like that until you realize it's part of a larger intimidation, and very redolent of what we see going on in the United States right now, and something we really hope we can avoid here in Canada.
Certainly hope so. So insofar as being detained goes, how long were they detained? And so where was this? At an airport, I assume?
Yeah, they were at Pearson, and late at night, he had to fly in from San Diego, so he'd gotten up at 3 a.m., so he gets in his wheelchair and wheeled into the airport, and he's held by a fairly young security officer who asks him a number of questions, what about the tribunal on Canadian complicity with Israeli genocides, and his views on Palestine and so forth. So the notion that he is being held as a national security cat seems almost laughable. I mean, a 95-year-old man coming in on his birthday in a wheelchair, and a famed international scholar who's clearly coming in to share his expertise with us. It's just beggars the imagination that they could even come up with the notion that he or his wife were security threats to Canada. After 4 hours, they did let them go. They missed their flight, I gather, and were late getting in on the flight to Ottawa. So that basically is what happened.
And how long were they detained?
4 hours.
4 hours. The whole concept of threat to national security has been so overused and abused by a variety of countries in the last number of years. It's extraordinary to me. So whether it be people's own individual thoughts about one conflict or another, what has been adjudicated as crimes against humanity and war crimes, not because I say so, the International Criminal Court has said as much. So I just don't know where we go from here. You know, people at the same time where they ring the bell of freedom, and they ring the bell of freedom of speech in the United States, and the same bell rung here with freedom of expression. But it seems more and more it's only free expression or free speech that you agree with that you accept.
Yeah, that's what is happening across the border, of course, as we both know. If you read any American newspapers, you can see more and more that free speech in the U.S. is becoming not just endangered, but critically ill. And the extent to which that kind of notion is creeping over here is scary indeed. It really is. And it also implicates Canada's international responsibilities and values. Canada the Good claims to value international law and so forth. And here we have a man coming in to talk about the Israeli genocide. And this is after an independent international commission just in the last few weeks held that, and I'll read this quote to get it right, there is, quote, fully conclusive evidence that statements made by Israeli authorities are direct evidence of genocidal intent. It further concludes that, quote, the state of Israel bears responsibility for failure to prevent genocide, the commission of genocide, and the failure to punish genocide against the Palestinians. So here, Falk and Elver were coming in to talk about Canada's complicity with this genocide. And so what we're talking about is the attempt to continue the genocide denial by Canada and to squelch any speech that talks about it. And this flies in the face of what will now seem to be fully conclusive evidence, not just reasonable grounds, the way the International Court of Justice put it, but fully conclusive evidence. So this is, to me, quite startling.
Yeah, and once again, we're very much in the world of cherry-picking what we'll accept as acceptable speech. I mean, we all understand, we can recognize when it becomes hateful speech and targeted speech that can result in violence, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, by and large, academic report and things that are actually happening right in front of our very eyes. So it's amazing stuff. And I'm going to go back to what has been a pretty famous quote. I disapprove of what you say, but I'll defend the truth. I'll defend to the death your right to say it, even though I don't think that was actually ever said by Voltaire. It's been largely attributed to him. I believe it comes from a book by someone, what's her name? Evelyn Beatrice Hall, maybe? Anyway, that's apropos of nothing. Anything else you'd like to say while we have you this morning, Alan?
Well, I just want to point out the one thing that I haven't said is that what Falk would have done, and presumably when he did get here to do, is to point out that Canada is in grave danger of its obligations under the Genocide Convention, because the Genocide Convention requires that once you're aware of the genocidal intent of people in another country and you can do something about it, that you have to. It's a requirement that you do what you can to prevent genocide. It doesn't have to be shown that you would have been successful. It doesn't. All it has to be shown is that you that you might have succeeded, that you had some influence to affect the result. Secondly, it also seems to be very dangerous that Canada is becoming very close to being complicit in that genocide, because you don't have to share the perpetrator's intent. All you have to do is to know of it. And so we now have direct evidence of genocidal intent. We know it's happening. We know the foreseeable consequences. And so Canada is in the position of possibly, and I would say probably, being complicit with genocide. And the final thing I'd like to say is that this is the same thing the U.S. did in the Rwandan genocide. And years later, President Clinton had to apologize for that because they didn't do something. Canada can avoid that mistake. We need to listen to people like Richard Falk and Ella Elver so we can avoid the American mistakes, both at the border and also with respect to genocide. We need to bring our own values in line with international law and values in line with our policy. I
appreciate making time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for hearing me.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it very much.
No problem at all. Bye-bye. And people will get offended by reference of genocide or what have you. And look, the conversation's welcome here on the program. But some of the very direct quotes from members of the Israeli Knesset and, of course, of the IDF leadership have said it pretty much the quiet parts out loud. So I don't know if we're really in the same place any further. And, okay, just a little different conversation. So I was asked, what the HE double hockey sticks is Mark Carney doing in the United Arab Emirates? Well, I suppose with all the things that they've been kicking around at the federal level and major projects or what have you, access to capital is going to be pretty big. So the key focus areas, we're told, as per the PMO, is areas regarding energy infrastructure, agriculture, artificial intelligence, and I suppose there's probably much more on. But then, any reference to doing business with some, as some people might refer to as some unsavory partners, whether it be the Qataris or the Saudis or the UAE, China, which of course many people, we talk about maybe problems that emanate from south of the border, when of course the influence of the Chinese, which is very real and well understood in this country, and Russia, which is well understood in this country, all part of those large conversations. And of course, some of those big international stories, if they're not what you'd like to talk about or hear about on the show, all you have to do is join us, and you can do it right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. I get asked every now and then why we're so focusing on things that might be considered as bad or doomy or gloomy or what have you, as opposed to some other positive things that are happening. Hey, nobody more pleased to talk about positive things than me. But of course, you sharing your positive experience is a lot different than me trying to share mine or other good news stories, so to speak. And also, every now and then, if you try to mention something positive that's happened, all of a sudden you're a bootlicker or something. It's all really quite silly and juvenile. But a couple of things that have happened in the very recent past here that I think could be considered some good economic news, because there's plenty bad. We see Stellantis and all the jobs moving from Canada into the United States and other examples like that. But just very recently, Sweden's Saab, S-A-A-B, they offered to build the entire global eye military surveillance plan in Canada. Something that's been worked on for quite a long time, and I think it precedes Mark Carney, to be honest with you. The Germans have just said they're going to purchase $1 billion worth of Canadian combat management system. That came from the trade minister just a couple of days ago. So, yes, every now and then there are a couple of good things that happen. Also, I heard Premier Wakeman with, I'm not so sure who, from the VOCM News or the VOCM Morning Show, talk about conversations with the Prime Minister. You know, number one is the concern regarding Bay to Nord and the possibility for that to be a nation-building project, even though I don't know how that fits in that envelope necessarily. But then he goes on to mention the Atlantic Fisheries Fund. It's worth a little historical context when we talk about that money. There was a pretty expensive press conference at the Rooms, and I believe the choir from St. Bon's was there, and it was just a big deal. It was the announcement of the Newfoundland and Labrador Fisheries Fund. And at the time, Cathy Dunderdale was the Premier, and the announcement was $400 million worth, $280 million from the federal government, $120 million from the provincial government to fuel modernising and technological or innovative expansion inside the fishery. It went away, and it went away for the silliest reason of all time. At the time, the federal government were asking us in this province to do away with our minimum processing requirements. And we did. And that was all in an effort to satisfy the final signing of CETA, the free trade agreement with the European Union. That happened, and then lo and behold, we were told that the Fisheries Fund will no longer be a thing. Why? Because this province, we were told, had not done a financial or economic evaluation to come up with the amount of money lost because of doing away with the minimum processing requirements. You know, it might have been nice if that was one of the caveats that the province was told, so we could complete a pretty fundamental exercise to have that number. So that went away. Then it came back in a different form as the Atlantic Fisheries Fund. It was once again $400 million, but it was to be spread around the entirety of Atlantic Canada. Vastly different than $400 million simply for this province and the modernising of, and it's not just the inshore, the offshore was actually available. It was an option for the offshore to apply for some of those support dollars too. The biggest problem now that we have that particular fund is that it expires in March. The money will be gone. And in the most recent federal budget, no mention of restocking or restockpiling the monies in the Fisheries Fund. It has been pretty helpful. You know, some of it may seem like small potatoes for investments for insulated tubs or some modernized dragging gear, or that's not the right word. But it is an important question as to whether or not that will be refilled. And if it is, it's going to have to be monies outside of what's already earmarked in the budget, which can be a problem. So pretty fair question for the Premier to ask. Obviously, the FFAW and others are wondering, and I would imagine we can include offshore fisheries companies in that conversation as well as to, well, what's next for that particular fund? In addition to that, and I don't know if the Premier had taken the opportunity or had time to ask the Prime Minister about what was some pretty vague comments on the campaign trail, albeit important ones. People talk about the structure of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, whether or not it's working as it should for the inshore harvesters in particular in this province. The Prime Minister said, you know, maybe some restructuring at DFO would be part of the conversation into the future. Not so sure exactly what he means or what he's referring to, but I think that's absolutely worthwhile deeper conversations between the Prime Minister and, yes, the Premier and or Minister O'Driscoll or whoever the case may be, or the union leadership, because that's one of the bugaboos that has been part of the annual fisheries concerns year over year over year over year. Now, it would be nice to have some specifics because the campaign trail is a great place to make promises or pledges where you don't have to get down to the weeds, because things are complicated, but campaign promises are very straightforward and fundamental and maybe not even manageable in the big scheme of things. But that's what the Prime Minister said on the campaign trail. So there you go. Also, someone said they just barely heard a comment I made about winter maintenance operations. Again, a promise made during the campaign by the Progressive Conservatives was to expand 24/7 winter maintenance operations, not to every part of the province, but to expand it to some areas. What they are, I don't know. I guess we'll find out a lot more at 11 a.m. out at the Foxtrap Depot, where Minister of Transportation Barry Pettin is going to make an announcement about 24/7 winter, what they call winter maintenance operations, which is basically ice control and snow clearing. Going to be very welcomed by a lot of people, because not everybody has a very predictable daylight schedule where that's the only time you're going to be on the road between 7 a.m. and whenever it gets dark, 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Because some people have to travel for emergencies. Some people just have unpredictable schedules where they might be forced to drive at night. And I think, like most of the motoring public, I'd much prefer to drive in the daylight versus the nighttime, especially on the highway. But some people have no choice. So if you've got to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning and you have an hour and a half commute, you have no choice. So to know that the plow and the salt truck would be out in front of you, so that, give you a better, safer opportunity to get to work unscathed, I think it's going to be a very welcome announcement here. What we don't know is what that might mean insofar as money goes. We can announce it, and that's helpful. And look, I don't begrudge people a bit of 24/7 snow clearing. I'll be happy enough if I have to be on the highway dusk or dark to know that the roads are still being maintained and the salt is being put down. But it also does come with a question about how much is that going to cost and how many more jobs might have to be added to offer a 24/7. Also, just how many depots are actually going to see that additional benefit for folks and residents of the area? So I don't know how many details we're going to get at 11 o'clock, but I think it's pretty safe to say that's going to be very welcome news. On that front, which I also added to that part of the conversation this morning, is if we're talking about safety on the province's highways and byways, it would be nice to know if there's any plans by this PC government to talk about public safety and cell phone coverage. There's been some pilot projects, one down the Burgeo Highway last year. That was more boosting signal in very small parts of that particular highway. And I know governments can't go it alone, and nor should governments be solely responsible for expanding things like transmission towers. Because even spots that had pretty reliable coverage in years past, it's not anymore. With the advent of 5G, more and more customers using the same transmission capacity. So it would be nice to know if they also have a plan in that envelope for, once again, to bolster public safety on the highways. All right, let's get a break in. When we come back, plenty of time for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Paddy McNeil. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for calling. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you on. Let's talk about Chad's medical journey. What's happening?
Well, Paddy, it's really, really great news on the fundraising side. I was aware of what was going on with young Chad. April the 14th passed, and I had other issues I had to deal with before I could help him. And once I get back to Pasadena, I seen that he was in desperate need of some funds. He has a very rare lung disorder, disease. It's alpha-1 anti-something or other deficiency, a rare genetic disease. He's 38, single dad with a 5-year-old boy. Lives in here in Pasadena. Good young kid. And I said, we got to do something about this. And I took a message to the Knights of Columbus. I am the Grand Knight. And I asked him, could I propose a fundraising for him. The council was in total agreement. So we sponsored him on a draw that I've done twice before, and it sells out in less than 6 weeks, and we're doing the same thing right now. We're doing a major fundraiser where there's only 1,200 tickets picked or to buy, and what they cost are $50. But what it works out to is every Tuesday at our hall, somebody has a chance to win $500. And if you win, your ticket goes back in the drum. It never dies. It stays in for all 52 draws. Plus, we've added 3 bonus draws, one on Mother's Day for an extra $500, one on Father's Day for an extra $500, and then another one on the first week of December for $1,000, which gives us 55 draws in all. So basically what you're doing is buying this ticket and paying 90 cents a week to play. And so far, I made an announcement last night at our local bingo, because we're strongly supported by our bingo people as well as people in the community. And we have already surpassed over 600 and some odd tickets with over $30,000 raised. The end result is we'll raise $60,000. $32,000 will go into a medical fund handled by a controller on his needs that he'll need while he's in Ontario. He has to leave here. As a matter of fact, he went to get on the boat on Monday, but it was canceled and because of wind, and now he's on his way to Toronto, where he'll have to stay until he waits for a donor for a double lung transplant. It's a scary time for him, scary time for the young boy and the family, and relieving some financial pressures will certainly help for him, and that's why we decided to do it. So the total prize payout package will be $28,000 in all. His portion of the draw will be $32,000, and I have no doubt whatsoever that that's going to be sold out in less than 6 weeks. And normally the draw does out in less than 6 weeks, but right now I think it's even going to be faster because we have tickets distributed to 4 other sellers in St. John's, Gander, and on the West Coast. And so there's only 7 sellers that are doing it, and we have the odd 1 or 2 people that will take 15 or 20 tickets. Right now the money is rolling in, the tickets are coming, and people are constantly calling my house or the other sellers to purchase a ticket in support of this young man. If people are not into buying tickets, and there are some that are like that, we also are getting donations received, which we will continue to accept and give to the comptroller of his account.
I think it's great what you're doing, and a couple of very quick questions. What's Chad's medical status at this point? I know he's awaiting a double lung transplant, but is he stable, or how dire are things?
Well, it's dire, Patty. He's on oxygen, coming in at 19%, which is not very much. He's moving slow, but health-wise, he's a perfect candidate for it. He's 38 years old, strong young man, but as you can well imagine, it's taken its toll. Not only is it taking its toll physically on him, but obviously mentally too. And his biggest concern, of course, is his young son, Jack.
Oh, that's what I meant to say, Jack, because I saw the email. My apologies. So for folks who, I don't know how to ask this question, there's unfortunately so many people out there who would be willing to take advantage of something like this. So they'll see one of these tickets, they'll take a picture, they'll go print them off. Do you want to share like is it registered with Service NL so it has a lottery number and stuff like that so we can protect you, the fundraiser, and the buyers?
Yes, Patty. I'm all about. In the Knights of Columbus, we have our own lottery license applications. It's all gone through lottery license with the rules and regulations. How we've done our tickets is we've done it under the lottery license rules, and we also have a ledger in place. Anybody that we don't know or we find suspicious, we don't address them, nor do we even accept them. You know yourself, you're getting phone calls all the time, but I'll be honest with you. Out of the 300 and some odd tickets I've sold myself personally, I've had no fraudsters in mind, and we always keep in mind of that. And so are my sellers. They were all trained by me to say, this is what you got to look for. There's no tickets out there that you can copy this. In the ticket itself, the Knights of Columbus logo is embedded in the ticket. Okay. The ticket numbers are there. It's going to be very difficult to, and our tickets are printed by a commercial printer.
Well, I'm glad. And there's a reason I asked that, because unfortunately, and this has happened to people around me doing some fundraising, all of a sudden they're made aware of a ticket that looked like it was a ticket they were selling, turned out to be just someone jumped on the bandwagon and tried to milk some money out of some unsuspecting people who were just trying to help. So I really appreciate the fact that you've gone that extra mile to ensure the tickets are verifiable. And of course, the Knights of Columbus would have a standing lottery license with Service NL. Keep us in the loop here. Anything that you're looking for from the listeners other than buying a ticket? Like, do you need any more sellers or whatever the case may be?
Oh, absolutely. We don't need no more sellers. Okay. I kept the team tight. I kept the control of the tickets. In fact, Patty, I said, right now, I've asked one of the sellers in St. John's to return 100 tickets to myself because we ran out on the West Coast. Okay. It's a good problem to have. It's an excellent problem to have, but it's and the lady in St. John's is working on that. I think the people we are contacting the most is people that we know within our, when I sat down with my group, I said, go open up your phone and go to your contacts open up your messenger and the people that you trust, the people that are kind-hearted or sympathetic towards causes like this. If you send that out and do it in the right manner, they will come back and they will respond tenfold. And that's exactly what's happening here.
I'm really pleased to hear it, Paddy. Good on you and the Knights of Columbus and everyone else working towards trying to support this medical journey. And fingers crossed for a donor to be found sooner than later.
Well, the beauty about it is he's met a couple of people in Newfoundland. We don't hear all these stories, but he's met a couple of people in Newfoundland that have had the double lung transplant, and they are being successful, and that's brought his spirits up. And he's also met someone that he's going to be seeing in Ontario that's just gone through it. So he knows it's a scary process, but I sat down with him and had a quick chat with him about here's how you have to think. Everything is going to be all right. You're healthy. Let's go get her done, because not getting it done is not very nice at the end of the day.
I appreciate this, Paddy. Keep up the good work. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Paddy, and thanks for having me on.
Happy to do it. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Yeah, and I purposefully ask about, how people can verify whether or not they're buying the real thing ticket. And, unfortunately, that's where my head is these days. It's becoming more and more difficult to have faith in what you see, what you think, what you read, or what you hear. And so it's good they embed the KFC logo right there in the ticket. That's going to be hard to mimic if you're not a professional printer. But it, brings me to the whole concept of organ and tissue donation. For a while there, I used to bring it up relatively frequently because it's an important conversation. How many people in this country would be more than willing to be a donor, but they haven't gone that extra mile? It used to be you check the box on your driver's license. It's not that anymore. In this province, you have to go through MCP to make them know that you are willing and wanting to be an organ and tissue donor. And then, really importantly, is to speak with your family to make your intentions known. So those two steps are required. If you haven't done it and you're willing to be a donor, please consider doing it today. There's also a couple of approaches that governments can take. In parts of Ontario, there was added to income tax filing was a box, just like you check a box that says that you want to get your GST rebate. There was another box that said, are you willing to be an organ and tissue donor? And lo and behold, after 1 year of tax filings, there was somewhere close to 2 million additional donors put on the list. So there are simple things that governments can do. Then you extended one more step, and I know we're not prepared in this province to take this step, but it is a conversation about, at this moment in time, you have to make your wishes known that you'd like to be a donor, as opposed to the converse would be you're a donor automatically. And if you don't want to be one, then you have to take that extra step to take yourself off the list, whether it be just a personal choice or possibly some religious concern or whatever it is. But if everyone was automatically a donor upon reaching the age of majority, say 19 years of age, and if you don't want to be one, then you have to do something about it. That would probably be a better idea. And I know we're not set up in this province to accommodate that particular change in thought or change in tune, but it's also something to consider. But there you go. If you're not a donor at this moment in time and you'd like to be one, contact MCP, make your wishes known. Once that's completed, you sit down with your family and once again confirm with them that you are wanting, upon your death, to be an organ or tissue donor. Okay, so apparently the emergency beacon thingy is going on right now. It's not on my phone, but apparently it's on Dave Williams. Let's take a break. When we come back, plenty of show for you. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Beaton, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Paddy.
Good morning. Welcome to the show.
I want to throw some thank yous to those who supported me over the loss of my wife. It'll be 3 weeks now, Thursday coming, so there's quite a lot of thank yous. I don't want to try to name too many because I know I'm going to leave out some, but first of all, I'd like to throw out a big thank you to Tracy King at the Cancer Clinic in Gander Hospital. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have had things done that was done, that we fought through to try to get done. And for the nurses at the Cancer Clinic in Gander and the nurses at the clinic in Cranwell Air that supported us, and all of those that who sent cards and condolences, I want to thank them all. It's a difficult time right now for me to speak about this, but it's the only way that I can thank them. There's no other way that I can do. So I'm glad that they were there for me, my family, and my wife's family. So It's been a rough last couple of weeks, 3 weeks before she passed. She did a lot of suffering, but thank God she's out of her suffering now, and she's resting comfortably.
First off, my condolences. I'm sorry for your loss, Beaton.
Thank you very much, sir.
It's an interesting way to get to the stage of grief that you're at, isn't it? Because, like, for instance, when our dad passed away, he was in some pretty serious pain leading up to his death. And it's funny how you can be sad and mourn the loss, but all at the same time be relieved that the pain is over.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Because I know when I stood at her bedside when she drew her last breath, like it was just like that. I was lifted off the floor, like the burden was lifted, like. You know, I knew then that she was out of her suffering, right?
I understand entirely. How old was your wife, Beaton?
She was only 62 years old.
And what was wrong with her, if you don't mind me asking?
She was she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer back in 2021 in the upper bowels, and then the cancer went from that, going on 4 years from that right through her body. So.
The scourge that is cancer. How long were you married?
We've been married, we were together 16 years. We've been married 15.
Okay, and where are you from, or where was she from?
I'm originally from Dover, and she's from Bunyan's Cove. Now, our 15th anniversary, we celebrated in the hospital in Clareville.
Oh, my. Well, I'm glad to hear that there were people there to support you and your wife on the stretch towards her unfortunate death a few weeks ago. So, again, my most sincere condolences to you, Beaton.
Yeah, I want to thank the Pritchett's Funeral Home in Gamma, too, as well, for the good job that they did for me. So, I know I can't express it enough, to let people know. How much I thank them for it.
And I'm sure they appreciate your kind words here this morning. And we hopefully will all be lucky enough to have those types of supports around us when we need them the most. And for those of you who were there for Beaton and his wife and family, of course, Beaton appreciates it, and so do I. And I appreciate your time this morning. Would you like to talk about anything else?
Yes. I want to go back to the moose license.
Okay.
Apparently, I'm going to be without $55. I don't think that I want to pay $50 for a letter from a doctor just for the sake of getting back $55. I tried reaching out to Lloyd Parrott, and I can't seem to get out to him. I left him an email from him to call me back, but he didn't do it. And I know Tony Wakeham is listening, so Tony, if you're listening, give me a call and try to see what we can do with this. Not only for me, but for everybody. A lot of people out there like me get the same problem. So I try to get things fixed. Patty, if they can give a moose license to a church or any organization and then get someone to go out and kill their moose for them, why can't they let me go and kill my wife's moose?
Yeah, and just so people know what we're talking about here is Beaton had paid for the moose license that it eventually could not use. And if you cannot use it through no fault of your own, you cannot use it because of sickness, then it should be fundamental enough to get that money back. And just put the license back in the pool so someone else can get it and use it. Exactly
my point, exactly. If not, just let me go and kill it and put a bit of meat in my fridge. I mean, my wife is gone, but I still got to eat. I still got to live.
Absolutely. And so this is one of those silly ones where, that's the tangle of government bureaucracy, right? I mean, because who's going to, want to play footloose and fancy free with this? If you had a license and can't use it, I mean, people aren't going to make this an annual trick to play on government. Why would they? It's aggravating at the best of times to deal with the government. And when we're talking about Beaton's particular and personal issue here, it should be fundamental. Here's your money back, and we'll take the license back. The end.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to. What sense do it make for me to go and pay a doctor $50 for the fill of the form for me to send back to them to get $55? It don't make sense.
Right, of course not. And who's going to tell that lie anyway? Right.
Well, the government is known for it, so.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough.
Good enough. Thank you very, very much, Paddy.
You take good care of yourself, Beaton.
I will, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's stuff like that just, it's already difficult enough to deal with whatever government department, on some real big complex issues, and some things might take time as you get passed along to one person or another, got to be put on hold, press 2, press 3, then eventually get nowhere. But Beaton's issue was pretty fundamental. Got the license, paid his $55, and can't use the license because of sickness and consequently now death. Should it not be a very straightforward process to simply say to the government, I can't use it, here's your license back, can I have my money back? You would think, but like most things, you'd think that some things could be straightforward and simple with government, but it's not generally the case. All right. Quick one. Asked, what was the rationale offered by Justice Fowler as to why he chose to take on a judicial recount in the voting district of Topsail Paradise, but not the other two? Given the fact that Topsail Paradise had the biggest difference in votes, which is 102. That's what the incumbent Paul Dinn, at this moment, has won over former Paradise Mayor Dan Bobbitt. It's a good question. The other two the difference of votes was 18, and the other one was 64, I think. And the problem with the other two is that there weren't any sworn or signed affidavits saying that anybody saw anything improper handled there. Well, at least that's Justice Fowler's interpretation of it. One person who came forward said they were scrutineer and had seen irregularities, but the problem was that person testifying on behalf of the Liberal candidates didn't see the irregularities in the two specific districts. Didn't see it out in Lewisport, Twillingate. Didn't see in Placentia West Bellevue. Made reference to saw it in Lake Melville or Torngat Mountains or what have you. So it's a pretty stretchy inference to say, well, if I saw it there, then I should believe or it happened here, which that's not how things work. So that's the issue here. In Topsail Paradise, Justice Fowler will have the final say in this judicial recount. So it started yesterday, should be wrapped up today or tomorrow. We'll find out who's going to be the member sworn in to represent the folks out there. So the basics are, they're not just looking at as to whether or not someone put an actual X in the circle. What Justice Fowler is going to do is consider whether or not a voter's intention is clear and reject it if it's spoiled or marked in a way that identifies the voter who cast it. So I don't know, and again, this not to be preachy or mean-spirited, but it's pretty simple to fill out a ballot. There's even instructions right there. So let's see if we can't do a little bit better in the future, because when people think about the integrity of election results, it's becoming trickier and trickier by the day. I mean, just think about it. We had a foreign inquiry into impact on elections, but at the exact same time, you look out in Terran over the peninsulas, there was hundreds of ballots that were spoiled. So, again, it's not for me to tell you what to do, but when you take the time and you've considered the candidates, or maybe not, maybe you're just voting for the party, and so be it. When you go and you get behind that screen or a piece of cardboard cutout to cast your ballot, it's pretty fundamental, and we could avoid some of these time-consuming exercises, even though I think it has merit. If people want to make sure that things are above board, then this is available to them. And someone's also asked me, who's paying for this? The applicant pays for it. So in this case, Mr. Bobbitt. And I don't know if he's going to be aided financially in any form or fashion by the party, being the Liberals, but yeah, it's a worthwhile exercise, and it doesn't destroy democracy. I would think it's the exact opposite. I think it strengthens democracy to know that that is an available next stage, quote-unquote, appeal to make sure we got it right. Let's check in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line, you know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Oh, one from Jenny. A friend of ours in Ottawa going on 2 years waiting for a heart transplant. His care requires him to stay in the area, and his family travels back and forth. They have a young daughter too. So we do know it's the emotional and mental strain when you get a diagnosis such as young Jack has. Add to it the complications of money. So good on the folks at the Knights of Columbus. Got a few emails, people saying, I just heard a bit of the conversation. The contact man's name is Paddy McNeil. That's who called us. He's a member of the Knights of Columbus out in Pasadena. So if you'd like to find out who a St. John seller of the tickets are, or whether or not you can make it simply a donation, you contact the Knights of Columbus in Pasadena, and they should be able to sort you out, either with Mr. McNeil himself or someone else who has the information at the tip of their tongue or the tip of their fingers. Let's see here. Let's get a break in for the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
welcome back to the show. Plenty of people ask me where they can get a ticket to help on Chad's medical journey. So Paddy McNeil is a member of the Knights of Columbus in Pasadena, but he also just sent me along a specific number that you can call if you want to organize getting a ticket. So 709-686-2372. So that's Paddy at 709-686-2372. Let's keep rolling here. Line number 2. Reg, you're on the air. Reg on line number 2.
Sorry about that, Paddy. I was just getting a cup of tea there, buddy. Sorry, Paddy. How are you doing, my friend?
That's kind. How about you, Reg?
Oh, good, buddy. Good. Anyway, Paddy, I got the same issue now. God love Beaton. I know Beaton, and my condolences go out to him. On a little different scale, I guess, regarding this moose racing thing. And I'm going to tell you, Paddy, I don't know what it is about this province. With the way we're treated, my God, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like the cat fishery. And I only got one word for this recreational fishery, is discrimination. That's the way I look at it. But getting back to the moose license now, we've been about 5 years. I'm a senior since the wife is senior. I know spring chicken, I guarantee you. But anyway, we've waited close to 5 years to get a moose license. Finally, she did get one. Bo only I call it half a license, but anyway, it's better than nothing. Now, the sad part is, Paddy, my wife had been waiting almost 4 years for surgery, 2 knees, bone on bone, and I got a letter to kill her moose for her. I also got a letter. I do a bit of cod fishery when it's open, the recreational fishery, to catch her 5 fish. She do have a wheelchair in her car when she goes places, so acts as wheelchair. Now, here's the problem, Paddy. My wife just went through surgery now on her foot there last week. She's going to be lined up for the next, according to what they're telling her, next 3 weeks. Time is a factor. You know, Paddy, I mean, at the end of the month, January or December, now it's going to be over with. I called Wildlife and I explained the situation to him. I told him my wife, just can't get in the vehicle for me to take her to Area 28, and it's almost next to impossible, you know what I mean, eh? But anyway, they advised me that if I go over and kill the moose, and she's not in my prison, and I'm approached by a wildlife officer, I could lose my truck, my gun, my privilege to own, or what have you, plus nasty fine, Paddy, that goes along with it. I mean, Paddy, what is it all about? I mean, we're senior citizens. It's probably our last license, you know what I mean? Because you're only getting every 3 or 4 years, if you're lucky. I mean, okay, so, and I also mentioned, I said, now, if I can get her in the truck, when we get to wherever, and we're driving down the road, and I see a moose, can she stay in the truck? She said, no, sir, she got to get out of the truck and be visible. And if you go down the woods that look for the moose, you got to be able to see her. I mean, my God, Paddy, I mean, I don't understand what's going on with Newfoundland lately. I mean, are we restricted that much? I mean, it's got to the point where, why even bother anymore? I mean, and like Beaton said, I mean, it's a moose that we can use, Paddy, to get a bit of meat, and the time is a factor now for us, so I don't know, Paddy. I've made numerous calls to different departments, and I get the same old story. Sorry, there's nothing we can do about it. If you don't like it, suck it up, and in that kind of a way. So I don't know, Paddy. Give me your. I wish you were the Minister of Wildlife or whatever. So I tell you, it's unbelievable, Paddy. What you got to go through.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gets a little bit silly when we talk about the person who's disabled are able to be eligible because they're disabled. So to say that they're going to have to make a trek into the woods to keep you in eyesight, I think it's 800 meters, if I'm not mistaken, is the farthest you can be away. Like, I don't even know what the rationale is for that. Is it to keep people from going out and getting the moose for the person who has the license as a disability license? Even if that's the case, so what? It's only one moose per license. So supposing that person's in the truck or on the quad or at the cabin. I mean, if they applied for the license and once you satisfy the license, that's it. And the person who shot the moose has been designated on the license. So I don't know why there's a distance issue. I don't even understand it, to be honest.
Well, the thing is, Paddy, I mean, my God, do they think that, if I might never see a moose, Paddy. I might never get a moose. I mean, but the thing is, I mean, I haven't announced it now because of the situation my wife is in, but I mean, time is a factor now, and like I said, I might never get a moose, but what do they think if I goes over there? I mean, I know I got a bow only. Do they really think that I'm going to, kill a cow or whatever? I mean, when I get a bow only license and the rest of losing my truck, my gun, and getting a fine, I mean, after waiting all those years, I mean, come on, for God's sake, Paddy, it's totally ridiculous. I just can't, I can't put a handle on it, Paddy, and I don't know, I mean, I don't know, my friend, it's just, it's getting to the point where, like I said, why even bother anymore, Paddy?
Yeah, it's exhausting. So there was a long stretch of time where there was no such thing as a disability moose license. So I think that's only as new as somewhere in the late 90s sometime. And I don't know if the rules have changed since it was first implemented from distance from the hunter, 800 meters, or within eyesight, or what have you. And plus, within eyeshot, does that mean it's in eyeshot through binoculars, or is it simply my own bare eyes? And as you get older, that could be, restricting the ability to see long distances in the first place. So it's a strange one. I don't think anyone's ever explained it to me.
No, well, that's what I say. Paddy, and the thing is, like Beaton, mentioned there, I mean, I talked to a gentleman there, and he said, right, I know where you're coming from, but he said, I got a license, he said, right now, he said, to kill a moose for some organization. I won't mention no name or anything. And like I said, that's not important. But anyway, now he said, I don't need anybody with me. He said, this letter says that I can go and kill a moose and blah, 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 and nobody got to be in my presence or whatever. So, Paddy, I mean, why can't I just go on, leave the wife where she's you're sitting on the chair, and if I'm lucky enough to get the moose, so be it, and everything is good. If I don't do nothing that is ordinary or do nothing wrong, I mean, what's it all about? I don't know, Paddy, but anyway, that's my 2 cents for today. I just thought I'd call in, I tried to get out to the minister's office, but never had no luck. But I called a few people and different, and it's the same old scenario, Paddy. It is what it is. If you don't like it, suck it up. But anyway, my friend, you carry on. Have a good day, and thanks for taking my call.
Anytime, Reg. All the best.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. And it just pops into my mind, it's not specifically about the moose license for folks who are disabled, but that is a good question to ask about why is it so sticky on how close you have to be to the hunter. It's 7 or 8 years ago, they actually amended the Wildlife Act to lower the age for people with the ability to get a small game license and a big game license. So it went in small game from 16 to 12, and in the big game it went from 18 to 16. There were plenty of people saying, hey, that's too young. But even the arguments being made by folks who were encouraging the lowering of the age, they had the research, they had the data. It showed pretty clearly that the younger you are, and you're, of course, to be trained and supervised by an adult, is that the safer you become. Because it was all about, not necessarily just about families hunting together, it was also had a lot to do with actual gun safety and understanding the rules and understanding the safe use of a firearm. So my question would be, has there been any potential dangerous outcome or outfall from that lowering of the age? Small game 16 to 12, big game 18 to 16? Not that I've heard of. So It was happening in other provinces. So people talk about it's part of heritage, it's part of families sticking together. It's also about enjoying the great outdoors. It's also about understanding the right way and the wrong way to do things. So at a younger age, apparently it's worked out famously. I've never seen or heard a story where it's gone sideways simply because of the age of one of the hunters. They also, at the exact same time, made changes to the disability portion of it. So I think it means folks who have an eligible disability and signed off note by a medical doctor, they also get first dibs on moose that were put down by conservation officers. So that would be the problem moose, right? Whether it be close by the roadway, maybe interruption of agricultural operations. But I think that's the way that's also worked here, is someone on the disability list has first dibs on a moose put down, a problem moose by a conservation officer. Pretty sure that's the way it works. All right, here. And also priority for firearm training, right? Someone else who knows more about it should be able to fill me in. But Stan's in the queue. He wants to respond to Reg, and then we're talking to you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Stan, you're on the air.
Hi, Paddy.
Hi.
That gentleman just called on about the moose license. I think that's all after changing. I'm sure it is. That if you're handicapped or the person that is handicapped and can't go with you, you can go and shoot the moose. You got to identify the person that's going to do it, and they can go shoot the moose. You can be home. I'm sure it's changed if you can check into the wildlife, because I think one of my family members is qualified to do that. I think he's got permission for someone else to shoot a moose for him even when he gets license again. I'm sure it is.
I had not heard.
Like he brought up there, some organisation like the St. Lions Club or one of those groups, Olympics crowd and that, they're having people, because that outdoor show we got here, I see him shooting moose for Special Olympics. Nobody there with him. So why is it you can do it for a group, but you can't do it for your own member of family or whatever that's handicapped?
Yeah, I think the charity license is different than the disability license.
What's that?
I think the charity license is different than the disability license.
No different. If my wife, I had a license a couple of years ago. I tell you, Paddy, how long I'm hunting. I went down around the bay, go into the store and buy my license for $10. Now, how long ago was that?
That's not yesterday.
Oh, so no, I heard this, and I think my brother-in-law, I think he's got permission from the wildlife, whatever the way they do it. It's worth checking into. I didn't check into it because there's no need for me to check into it now. But you can get, I'm sure, special permission. Same as someone can get a catfish for you. It works that way, I think.
I'll confirm. I was not aware of any change made to the distance parameters for a disability license, but it's easy enough for me to find out. I suppose I could just go to the government's webpage and see if there's been any amendments to the Wildlife Act, but I was unaware of any changes, if that has indeed happened.
When I hang up now, I'm going to call him, and if he got that, what I think he got, you'll get a call back from me.
Okay, I appreciate it.
And another thing, I just want to touch base from something I phoned last week about. I think it was that fundraiser that I was donating money and they wanted to charge me a fee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I didn't give till the next day. You told me I phoned Red Cross to give money next day. But I was talking to a friend the same day. Next day, when I donated, I was talking to a friend. He said I donated $30 and I got a 12% charge to my. When I got the receipt back, I got back. It was what, $360? I think was taken out of my receipt. I never got credit for $30. I got credit for $26.40. I think it was.
Yeah.
That's a load of crap. If that went on, every dollar was donated, whoever it is getting 12% of it. But geez, they made a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a credit card company.
If it's a crowd got the credit cards, if they're charging it because they're going to charge that, organization, well, I can see that, I suppose. But like I said to you before, I've donated money and was never charged my credit card. But if I donated $30, I got credit for $30. Not minus 12%.
Yeah, I gave it some thought after. So it's only one of two ways this is going to work. So if there's a credit card transaction fee being charged by whatever credit card company for the charity when they're trying to finalize these transactions, so it's either one of two things. It's either the charity pays the fee or the donor pays the fee, or even better, if the credit card company is sitting on their hundreds of millions of dollars, if they waived fees or reduced fees for charities and for not-for-profits, because
like I said, I've been doing it for years, donating to different organizations there. Not a big lot of money, but as much as we can. Being seniors like ourselves, closer to 90, I am to 80, and we don't have a big lot to donate. But I mean, if you give us $20 or $30, it's help. And like I said, you haven't charged me anything yet. So someone is absorbing the cost if it is, and if those credit card companies can't absorb it, why do you? I mean, I always say you donate if you don't have a credit card. you can send a check into them, but a lot of people don't want to send checks because your number's all there for someone to get.
Yeah, and I mean, how many people even have a check anymore?
True, and no, it's no checks now. No, but anyway, Paddy, what I called for is about that special way of getting your license like that guy. I hear him on quite often there. He should be allowed to go, or him, or someone pointed out that person that's allowed to go and shoot the moose for her. But I'm going to find out if my brother-in-law got that special permit. If he have, I'll notify you again.
I appreciate it, because I was certainly not aware of any changes for the better on that front, but if you let me know, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I heard that recently. It could be a couple of months ago I heard that. But when I heard him mention that, I said, there's no need for him to be sitting home. And his wife got a license. She can't fill it because she got to be there. That's a load of crap. I mean, you could be in a wheelchair. How in the hell can you be within whatever the distance is when someone shoots a moose? I could fire at a moose, and I know I got him, but he's going to go probably another 100 yards, and I got to go in there in the woods and get him. She can't be in there, sure. Is that illegal then? It's a load of crap what they're getting on with. Like you said, we're treated like third world country. With everything, the fishery and the whole works. But anyway, my love, that's it for now.
I appreciate the time. Thanks a lot, Stan.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Yeah, I had not seen any change to that particular distance rule, and I do know there's such a thing as a charity license, and you just pick a charity. They have the ability to apply for a license and designate a hunter, and that happens all the time. There's actually a buddy of mine, I think he got 2 charity licenses this year. He's got his own somewhere out on the West Coast. In addition to that, and just very quick, I don't want to squeeze anyone up against the news. Plenty of concern about just how accurate the moose head count numbers are. I think they've changed their strategy in the recent past about how they come up with a guesstimate of how many moose are here. But if you talk to, say for instance, Eugene with SOPAC, they will use one number. If you talk to hunters, they'll say there's far fewer moose than there used to be. So it would be interesting to know exactly how the process works and to have a better and accurate number, because it doesn't just talk about things like road safety. It has to talk about the number of licenses that are issued each year too, right? On top of that, I hear this one every season when it comes around. So in some zones, there might not be a reduction in overall licenses issued, or maybe a small reduction, but the entity that doesn't see any reduction would be the outfitters. Now, I know it's a contributing part of the economy, but when folks are told that in their zone, let's just use round numbers. Last year there was 100 licenses, and let's just use the divvy, 30 for the outfitters and 70 for the locals. And then the next year it's 95, but the exact same number for the outfitter, and the reduction comes for those who are the everyday local who simply want their moose license as well. All right, there's a caller there who wants to talk about Joey Smallwood. That's interesting. We'll have that conversation after the news, but let's check in on the Twitter box. Okay, so this is from Steve. An aging disabled hunter who can no longer go into the woods can still apply for the moose license as a partner to an able-bodied hunter. It increased the able-bodied hunter's chance of getting a license, and there's usually a quarter of moose in it for them. That's right. I guess that would be a side deal as to how much moose you actually get out of it. And get a few questions about how to reach the folks like Barry Fordham at Sharing the Harvest. If they have a Facebook page, pretty sure there's a direct contact email on that page that if you'd like to know more about it, or you'd like to be part of contributing to, or you'd like to be on the receiving end of, you can do exactly that through Sharing the Harvest. I think Barry mentioned it was their 5th or 6th anniversary this year, which is a really good idea. And thankfully, the province amended some legislation to allow for some of the food banks to accept country food, wild meat in particular. So you have to go through, and Barry will correct me if I'm wrong, you have to go through who is an accredited butcher with an accredited and certified abattoir by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. But imagine the glee that if you need to go to a food bank, like over 2 million Canadians do, which is shocking this day and age, is to be able to come out with something that is so natural and organic and high in protein, and something that would absolutely be in the envelope of comfort food, as opposed to some of the other fare that you'll be able to get at the food bank. All right, we're taking your emails. It's open on FEOCM.com. When we come back from this particular newscast, we are going to talk a little Joey Smallwood. From what angle? I don't know. I think this particular caller would like to sing the praises of former Premier Smallwood, the first Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, the father of Confederation. But we'll see what Otto has to say right after this, and then plenty of show left for you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let us go. Line number 1. Otto, you're on the air.
Thanks for taking my call. Paddy?
No problem, buddy.
Beautiful day here. The sun is shining bright.
Yeah, it's pecking rain
What
here.
are they in the country? What are they moose on? Paddy, I want to talk about Joey Small. They get the blame for Church Falls deal down the right? Back in the 68 or 70. But wouldn't Joey Small, it was Brinko. You ever read the book on Brinko?
I'm not so sure I read a book on it. I've read a bit about it, though, yeah.
Well, Joey got the blame, but wouldn't Joey Small? He comes to law in 23 years. He was premier, right? The Oil Company of Canada, Company Chance. You know what the heaviest left in North America was? It was in Company Chance. A reactor, 710 tons, 91 feet high. My son used to work in that reactor.
Okay.
And you know how long the wharf is in Company Chance?
No idea. No idea.
1/4 of a mile. 1/4 of a mile long, but he's the jetty. Now, George Small, North Church of Falls, Labrador, Laundry Mill. I got a list of 20 or 30. Harston Culture Center, Labrador, Lake Melville, Pop and Paver, Holy Road General Station. The list goes on. He was from some premier, buddy. You take Montreal Falls, it costs $6 billion. They spent $13 billion. Unreal.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot.
We're going to have to pay. We're going to have to pay for that. Someone got to pay for it, and it's going to be the taxpayer.
Well, ratepayer, yeah.
Where's the money going to come from? If not from us guys. Hey, boy.
Yeah, well, the Muskrat.
You expect for 1 year's premier, $24 billion. Cucumbers. But Joey must have some man, but he got blamed for Church of Falls, but wasn't Joey's fault.
No, I think there was a bit of blame to go around.
You read that book, you will know.
Okay.
I worked there. 67, 68. I worked on I was shot for it, then I went to work home worker on spillways. So Joey must have some man, buddy. He come from Gamble. Hard me guy, eh?
Yeah, I see you drive by.
He comes a lot in his 23 years, eh? The Holiday Inns, all them. Well, Mr. Small, my son, who was raised in tone, he done a heck of a job. That's all I got to say, Paddy. And I'm going to tell you something now. You got a son up in Gander, right?
Uh-huh.
You visit them, right?
I haven't in a while. He's come in here the last couple of times.
Well, if you come up to Gander, come to A&W. It's up on Joel Everett Drive, just off there by Canadian Tire. Come up the hill there. I know it from France, Canada, right?
Yeah, I know where it is. Yeah.
Yep, you come up there, but the boys like to meet you. We meet down there around 10 o'clock. I say it's 12 or 14 guys there.
Okay. Appreciate the invitation.
Stop in for a coffee.
Sure, bye.
Love to meet you.
Yeah, it sounds good, Otto.
And you're welcome to come to the department, too.
Okay, buddy. Thank you very much.
The invitation's still there, buddy.
I appreciate it very much. Thanks for calling.
I had a mild concussion. They fell down. My sugar went down to 2.3. I was out of action for a while, but still on go. Still trapping. I got a beaver line.
You have a beaver line out?
Yep.
Okay.
Lots of beavers. Man, I know it's 4 or 5 trappers died in there, eh? Well, if you ever come to Uganda, stop in day and double for coffee. I'll be there.
I will do it, and I appreciate the invitation. Thanks for calling.
Good day, Paddy.
You too, Otto. Take care.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I think it's like most political legacies. Some of the worst things will get hung over your head. Like you say, Peckford in a sprung greenhouse as opposed to Atlantic Accord. And Joey, whatever you think of Confederation, but he'll get resettlement hung on him. And the Labrador Liner Board, which, went from 1973 to 1977, sold it at a significant loss to the province. I think Abitibi bought the linerboard plant, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, Joey's also responsible for Memorial University, amongst other things. All right, let's keep going. Line number 2, say good morning to the Executive Director at CAD&L. That's the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities, Nancy Reid. Hi, Nancy, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for the opportunity this morning.
No problem.
I was listening to a couple of the callers just a little while ago about the Hunter program.
Yep.
Just wanted to clarify a little, if I could.
Sure.
And I'd like to say, from my perspective, unfortunately, not enough has changed within the program. Mostly, Patty, I think your understanding of the way the program exists is fact. Currently, persons with disabilities who are hunters under the program must still have if they're going to use that program, must have an appointed hunter stay within 800 meters of them during the hunt. Now, if an animal is injured, if whoever shoots that animal, and if it's injured and it must be tracked, it must be chased, obviously the appointed hunter is allowed to go to track that animal, to finish it, to complete the kill, the harvest, without staying within that 800 meters of the hunter, of the person with disability.
Right.
However, for the initial shot, the designated hunter must be within that 800 meters.
Yeah, and you know better than me. Has there ever been a rationale offered as to why it is the way it is? Because I'm not so sure it makes a whole lot of sense to me. Because if I have gone through the process with the government, I've been given the disability license, I've certified or designated a hunter, if that person goes with that license, with their name on it, and gets the animal, I'm not so sure what difference it makes with the disabled person to be within eyeshot.
Yeah. I've had the conversation with ministers responsible in the past. I have not yet met with, the current minister, MHA Minister Cleveland Forsey. I intend to, and I hope to, but I haven't initiated that conversation as of yet. Patty, I don't understand it either. I will say, and I've said it often in this space, I am also a hunter, and I am a person with disabilities. I use a wheelchair, and I've participated using the Disabled Hunter Program for quite a number of years now. Sometimes I am the shooter, and sometimes my appointed, my husband, who is with me at all times in these spaces, sometimes he does the shooting. I don't know any reason that we can use to justify the rules as they exist. People with disabilities should be treated with equity. That means that we should be able to participate in the hunt, and both as a food source, which many of us as Newfoundlanders, Labradorians do, but also as a sport or a piece of recreation. And whether I'm a person that can actually shoot the moose, if I have my legally obtained license, which all of us have in order to get this, we should be able to participate in the hunt just as anybody else should and can without a disability. Some people with disabilities actually participate in the hunt because of the enjoyment of it. The sights, the smells, the sounds, the activity of it, to be actually in there. Many of us do it as a food source. So there's no way that it should be denied in the way that we're seeing right now. So I'm really glad that the callers are actively bringing that up. And there is also, I want to say, a difference with the nonprofit moose license each year. And again, that's something that's very valid. At the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities, we actually make application to that each year. Some years we're successful. This year we were successful in acquiring that moose. And then that meat can be used in a number of ways. And you've talked about opportunities sometimes to donate to charity. So those are all things that, that I think are very valid. And we need to be able to consider ways that we're doing things now that could be done better and actually making better use of this wonderful source of protein that's out there in the woods.
Absolutely. Nancy, I appreciate making time for the show. Anything else on your front before we say goodbye?
No, International Day for Persons with Disabilities is coming up on December 3rd. We're going to be doing some fun things, some cool things, and I hope everybody just keeps tuned and stay listening. We'll talk soon. I
look forward to it. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Nancy Reid, Executive Director at the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities. Final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Michaela, you're on the air.
Yes, hi. How do you do this morning, Mr. Daly? I've been listening to your program, and I must say I find it very, very interesting and informative. I just wanted to support those hunters out there, those young hunters. I have a son. And at the age of 12, I brought him down to the provincial representative then for youth hunting. Very kindly man, took him in, interviewed him, yada, yada, and he gave him permission, to hunt, of course, with a responsible adult. I just want to share my story to say that what a wonderful opportunity it led for my son. It kept him very active, very healthy. He enjoyed the hunting, enjoyed, all of it, the whole experience, boil up in the woods, et cetera, and camaraderie of all the other hunters. So what did that do for him? Well, I'll tell you what it did for him. He went on then to the college to do his wildlife. At the college in Corner Brook. From there, he graduated. He transferred all his credits to another province where he completed his degree in fisheries and wildlife management. And to this day, it's still a very, he's only in his 30s. He totally enjoys it. The woods is his life. And I'm very grateful for what we were allowed to do. And I must say, it's been remarkable. I listened to those stories this morning about those people with disabilities trying to get their moose. And the only other thing I want, I feel very badly for them. And, it's quite an arduous task, and I don't think it's right. I think the rules should be changed on that. Also, here's another rule that I would like for Mr. Wakeham to change in this government, is that not only should you be a resident of Newfoundland and Labrador to go out as a citizen now. I'm not talking about the moose hunting groups or, nothing like that. I'm just talking about an individual who's living in Newfoundland and Labrador. I think you should have to be a resident and a Canadian citizen in order to get a moose license in this province. I've lived in many different countries, and I can tell you that the rules are, unless you're a citizen, you're not getting anything. So I'd like to throw that out there.
Yeah, they loophole that around here. So you have to be a citizen to get the license, but the outfitter can get the license on your behalf, and you can be an American traveler, come here and use his license. Yeah,
well, I'm just saying that I don't think you have to be a Canadian citizen here to get a moose license. You have to be just a resident.
That's it.
A permanent resident.
Yep.
And I'm saying that's what needs to be changed. Okay? You should have to be I'm just talking about a sole individual who's going out, not with a moose hunting lodge connection or anything like that. I'm not talking about anything like that. Just a private individual that's going out to shoot a moose here in this province should be a Canadian and plus a resident of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Fair enough.
And I will just throw that out there. That's what's happening. It's a topic for another day, but I really get tired, too, of all these wonderful companies that we have here, and they're putting up scholarships for students, and the only requirement is that they're a resident, not that they're a Canadian citizen plus a resident. And I will tell you, because I've had children who have gone to other countries to get their post-secondary, and they have been refused outright. You are not a citizen of this country, therefore you do not qualify for scholarships. So anyway, I just wanted to add that little adjunct, and maybe people will stop, because I was listening yesterday to somebody on, I think it was CBC, and they were talking about this is not the Canada we want right now. We need to do a little bit better. We need to do a little bit better in some ways for those who have given so much for so many years. That why can't we put a few stipulations in there like a lot of other countries, the G7 countries have in place as well. And when we put up a scholarship, or when we offer these licenses, let's make it de facto that you are a Canadian citizen first, plus you are a resident of that province. And that's all I have to say.
And I appreciate your time. Thanks, Michaela.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, I really, really support, and all those young boys and girls out there who are, interested in hunting, I think it's a wonderful program, a wonderful opportunity, and I truly do thank the government for it. Maybe Mr. Wakeham might take issue with this and might say, hey, would be nice to have a change. Thank you very much for your show.
You're welcome. Take care.
Yep, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Yeah, and I mean, you can get a firearm safety course. Is it all simply online these days? I think the RCMP offers an in-person training for the Canadian Firearms Safety Course. You have to be 12 years of age to actually fire a weapon, but I think if you're under 12, you can still take the course just for the information purposes. Anyway, last word goes to line number 3. Mike, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning.
Paddy, as you know, I've been into this for wildlife with different rules and regulations, and that's for years. And I've had lots of arguments and that and stuff with them. Anyway, I wound up that at 75 years old, I went out and shot my moose legally. I got charged with 5 charges. It's before the courts. Now, as a result of this, there was no witnesses as regards to it. The wildlife officials had 3 phone calls which they knew were false, not proven. They went and got a search warrant based on these stories that they knew weren't true, that they lied to a peace officer, which is an indictable offence. The warden went out and got a search warrant based on and swore on the affidavit that the complaints that he got were accurate and reliable, and they weren't, and he knew that they weren't. So now we got a search to the search warrant, and they got an anonymous query hired on to advise the judge on the validity of the search warrants. It's been 2.5 years now that they took the moose. We're looking at another court date in the 20th of February to look at the validity of the search warrant, because we challenged the search warrant. It's 2.5 years now. We only gone through one witness yet, which was the supervisor. And all of this stuff, all that I can be charged with is maximum fine is $1,000 and lose my license for 5 years. Just moose hunting. I can still hunt small game. I can still hunt black bear and whatever. I'm just not allowed to hunt moose and caribou. But these people are facing indictable offences, lying to a peace officer, on the search warrant and that for the warden. Like, this is going on and on and on. Now they're blaming me for delays in this going to court because I challenged the search warrant. Oh, it was my doing and that and all this stuff. But, like, here it is, months and months. Like, I don't care about the charges. I can go to court and defend myself. They've got a lot to prove. Like, on the search warrant, they left out information that was valuable. They also, the information that they given wasn't truthful, wasn't reliable. They knew it. And what was the other thing? There was 3 things there. Oh, yeah, they came to my property. They came in the morning. They seized the moose and the gun. They stayed on my property for all day to get the search warrant. Then I asked them, I said, why do you need a search warrant when you've seized the animal, seized the stuff? Oh, he said, we just want to make it legal. So now they put themselves into the spot that if they had to get the search warrant to make it legal, they never had the right to come on my property to seize the animal in the first place. And there was no witnesses, no actual witnesses, no nothing. We've got expenses gone out for DNA samples, veterinary bills, storage of the animal for over 2 years, amicus curiae hired by the government to advise the judge. Thousands and thousands of dollars gone because I got a legal moose with a legal license and I shot it legally. And here's all these other people who are actual criminals. It's testified in court. All this stuff was all accurate, recorded, and everything else. So I got no reason to exaggerate or lie or anything else. But it's just totally ridiculous. And like I said, I just like to get this thing in court.
Understood.
Have it heard. and this thing, too, on the dwelling. the big decisions on the dwelling.
Yeah,
this stuff haven't all come up yet.
Yeah, we don't even have time for that this morning, though, Mike, but I appreciate it. You've had the last word.
Oh, and by the way,
And
there's
that
a
was
good
the
reason why they call swamp donkey cops.
Fair enough.
They're jackasses.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Bye-bye. All right. Good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, Dave Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.